Good morning, student. So, in the series of video lecture in basic mechanical engineering, next topic in manufacturing engineering is casting. So, casting process is one of the earliest metal shaping technique known to human being. It means pouring molten metal into a mold cavity and allow it to solidify. If we talk about the casting history, then casting process was discovered probably around 3500 BC in Mesopotamia, and casting technology was greatly improved by Chinese in 1500 BC. And now today we also manufacture many machine components through this manufacturing technique. So it has three, or we can say have four step process. The first step is obviously molten metal is poured into a mold or cavity and allowed to solidify. And the second step is molten metal on solidification get the shape of the mold. Third step, mold has the shape of the product to be made. And the fourth step is the inspection and machine the product if required. So if we classify the casting process, then the sand casting and metal mold casting is the classification. And if we further classify metal mold casting, then permanent mold casting and die casting, and further divided die casting in hot chamber or cold chamber. So sand casting is one of the oldest casting process. These are the some of the steps in molten metal mold or molding. So we go one by one. Molten metal. Casting are made in a large number of metals and alloy, both ferrous and non-ferrous. Cast iron components are very common. Steel casting are stronger and are used for components subjected to higher stresses. Aluminium and aluminium alloys casting are used in automobiles. Stainless steel casting are used for making household items. So for casting, metal has to be heated above its melting point. The heating is done in a furnace. So next step is pattern. Pattern are mostly replica of the casting which is required. It is a similar in shape and size to the final product, but not exactly. Some allowance or some allowance is there. So pattern are usually made of good quality wood. However, if a very large quantity of casting are made required, then metal patterns may be used. Usually they are made of aluminum or magnesium alloy. So the diagram shows a metal or say wood pattern. The top portion is called cope, and the bottom portion is called drag, and the line divided cope and drag is called parting line. The diagram showing open and closed mold, and open mold contains flask mold and cavity that has to be filled through molten metal. It is very simple and easy to make. And other diagram is closed mold, and closed mold consists of a cope which is in top portion and drag portion which is in bottom, separated by a parting line. Cope consists of pouring cup, down sprue, runner, riser, and there is a metal cavity. So these are the some of the definition of pouring basin, sprue, runner, gates, riser. We have again come to this point. So these are the other diagram showing whole the casting process. So pattern. Pattern is a model or replica of the component to be made by casting, and the type of patterns are one piece pattern, split pattern, loose piece pattern, match split pattern, cope and drag pattern. So one piece pattern. Sing or it's a single piece pattern. It is made single piece pattern are made in one piece and are suitable only for very simple casting. It can be set into the molding box which create cavity and very easy to remove. Split pattern. It is not practical to have one piece pattern for parts of complicated shape because it will not be possible to withdraw the pattern from the mold. For example, if a circular head was added to the either top or bottom or it's a both, it would make it necessary to go in for a split pattern. Some of the more complicated casting may require pattern to be split in 3 or more pieces. In loose piece pattern, in some cases, the casting may have a small projection or overhanging portion. These projections make it difficult to withdraw the pattern from the mold. Therefore, these projections are made as loose piece. They are loosely attached to the main part of the pattern, and the mold is made in the usual way. When the main pattern is withdrawn from the mold, the loose piece slip off and remains behind in the mold. Other type of pattern is match plate pattern. Match plate is a metal plate usually made of aluminum. The two halves of the split pattern are mounted on the match plate, one on either side. These are the match plate diagram, separated by top and bottom portion separated by plate. Cope and drag pattern. Top portion is called cope section and bottom portion is called drag section and separated by a plate. These are the diagram of cope and drag pattern. So core. Uh, Whenever a hole or recess, undercut or internal cavity is required in a casting, a core which is usually made of a refractory material like sand is inserted at the required location in the mold cavity before finally closing the mold. The type of core is horizontal core, vertical core or hanging core. These are the diagram of horizontal core placed into the mold. Horizontal core. These are the diagram of vertical core. These are the diagram of hanging core. If the core overhang from the cope and does not have any support at the bottom in the drag, then it is called hanging core. So chaplets, mainly it is used to support the core. uh, Diagram showing it. Other diagram of chaplets. Sand casting technique. So the passage provided in the mold through which molten metal will flow into the mold cavity is known as the gating system. The molten metal then flows down through the runner into a well from where it enters into the gating system and into the mold cavity. Without a gate, the metal would have fallen straight into the mold cavity, damaging it. Beside, the gating system is so designed as to trap impurities from entering into the mold cavity. So the function of riser is twofold. Firstly, it provides a visible indicator that mold cavity is full. Secondly, and more importantly, the molten metal in the riser provides a reservoir to feed the shrinkage caused as the casting progressively solidifies and cool. So these are the diagram. These are the some of the steps in sand casting. In sand casting, where we prepare sand, and sand is generally made of silica sand, and we have combined it through binders and added molasses to make it usable. And if core making if needed, pattern making, mold making, and then raw material is melted in furnace and pouring molten metal and solidification, cooling and removal of sand model, cleaning and inspection, and the finish casting. These are the steps in sand casting. Again, in diagram showing these are the some of the steps in sand casting technique. Okay, thank you.